All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our special event, our webinar to kind of wrap up the 2018-19 season and see what great things everybody's doing and kind of touch base and see what everybody is planning on doing with their experience from last year. As you know, Judy and I and Sarah just finished working with the new cohort that's headed out into the field, actually with some of the researchers that are online today and in June. So it's kind of crazy times, crazy time of year. Anyway, before we get started, just a reminder of who everybody is. We'll go virtually around the room and just introduce yourself and remind us where you're at and which team you are working with or which educator you're working with. And we'll start with, I'm Janet. And I am in Hawaii, not Alaska at the moment. Sitting on, yeah, it's rough. It's rough webinar stuff. So anyway, I'm going to go virtually around, and the next person I see is Keith.
I'm Keith Smith. I teach at Freedom High School in Morganton, North Carolina. I was with Dr. Chuck Amsler in Palmer Station, Antarctica last May.
Okay, and you need to move when you talk again, Keith. You were pretty far away. We couldn't hear you very well. See. All right. Wendy. You're muted.
I have to unmute.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out. This is my first time.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm Wendy. I was with Dr. Alexis Will in Tavonga on St. Lawrence Island. Birds.
Okay, Gary.
I'm Gary Wishy. I went to Antarctica 10 years ago. Oh my gosh.
Oh.
So I met most of you that went at your training in Alaska.
Yay. Neil.
Hi, I'm Neil Everson. I was working with Lauren Adamo in the Alps this last summer.
Very good. Speaking of Lauren, there she is. You're next.
Yes, hi, I'm Lauren Adamo. I'm one of the informal educators. I work at the Rutgers Geology Museum in New Jersey. I'm on vacation too, but not as exciting as Hawaii. I'm in Florida right now. But anyway, I went to Switzerland this past summer to study some glaciers.
Excellent. All right, Alexander.
I'm Alexander Holder from Alaska Fairbanks, and last summer me and my colleague Santos Panda with Alice from Oregon Museum of Science in village of Nikolai.
All right, welcome. And Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison. I am an exhibitor at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, and I went with Alexander and Dr. Santos Panda to Nikolai, Alaska to study permafrost.
Excellent. And we have Mike.
Hi, Mike Penn. I went with the Automatic Weather Stations Project, the University of Wisconsin. There's David Lee, and the PI is Dr. Matthew Lazara.
Oh, nice. And we have Sarah.
All right, I'm Sarah Bartholow, so I'm working with the PolarTREC team with the informal educators and making sure lots of connections are happening. And I'm on my front porch in Healy, Alaska in the subarctic.
All right, Jeremy.
I'm Jeremy May. I'm a postdoc at Florida International University, and last year I went with Melissa to Northern Alaska.
All right, and it looks like I have Christina. Or Christine, sorry.
Hi, I'm Christine Minions. I'm a research assistant at Woods Hole Research Center. We spent some time in Alaska last summer with educator Kim Young. Actually starting some vegetation from Alaska right now, so if I'm not looking, that's just what I'm working on right now.
Very good. All right, and Raylene?
Hi, I'm Raylene Wentz. I'm in Fairbanks, Alaska, and I am the new AK project manager for the Warburton project.
I like that, the Warburton project. PolarTREC, it's all right. You can manage me too. That's a whole nother ball game, though. I'm telling you. Your turn. Oberbauer.
Hi, I'm Steve Oberbauer. I'm down in Florida. I live here. It was an incredibly beautiful day after that front went through yesterday. It's like one of those all day clear, completely clear all day, tropical breezes all day. I worked with Melissa Lau up at Barrow and then Tulik, Alaska. Actually, I was only with her in Barrow, but she went back to Tulik with Jeremy.
All right, very good. And we have the two teams, Dave and Lee here.
Hey, I'm Lee Wellhouse, and this is Dave Mikolajczyk, and we work with the Automatic Weather Station project, and we brought Mike with us to a fair number of places in Antarctica, including South Pole, which is great.
Yeah, and the PI of the project, Matthew Lazara, won't be able to join us for the call, so.
No, you tell him hello for us.
Will do.
Melissa.
My name's Melissa Lau, and I went with Jeremy and Steve as the PI on the project, and we spent 32 days on the North Slope of Alaska.
All right, welcome. And we have Bridget.
Hey everybody, I'm Bridget Ward. I'm going to be studying Waddell seals down in Antarctica, but I want to just follow up with everyone from the first cohort and see how you guys are doing. So I'm coming to you right now from Arizona.
In a car. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll let Bridget's team couldn't deploy last year, so she gets to go this year. DJ, you're next.
Hi, everybody. My name's DJ Cast. I traveled up to the Arctic to Tulik Field Station in 2016 with Dr. Byron Crump, looking at microbial biogeography, and I was part of your training session last year. So proud.
It's awesome. Marybeth.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marybeth Decker. I'm from Yale University, and I worked with Joanna Cerici last summer in the Bering Sea. We were looking at jellyfish in particular, but plankton and fish as well. And I'm actually coming to you from UC Berkeley, where my husband's giving a talk, and I'm on break with my kids. So I sent them off with an undergrad I just met, and they're having a good time touring campus, and I'm in the astronomy department.
Nice, nice. Very good. All right, Alexis.
Hi, everybody. My name's Alexis Will, and I study seabirds on St. Lawrence Island. And I was so lucky last year to have Wendy come out and join us for several weeks. We had a really fun time. And I wish I could hire her as a real field tech for all my other summers. We'll work on it.
There you go. That sounds awesome. All right, we have Kevin. You just joined.
Yeah, kind of slow on the internet around here. I'm on about my third computer. You can tell I'm in my wife's sewing room in here now. So
looks nice. Okay, you got to tell us where you went so we know who you're with. Kevin.
Talking to Kevin?
Yes.
I went to the dry valleys of Antarctica. Is that what you mean, or where I went like today for my job?
No, where you went on your expedition.
I went to the dry valleys of Antarctica with Dr. Byron Adams at Brigham Young University. We had probably about 5 different PhD docs on our group, affectionately known as the Worm Herders. And so we were based out of McMurdo, and about an hour flight by way of helicopter out to our area.
Excellent. All right, very good. And I have somebody on iPhone. Who's that? Who's on the iPhone?
I'm on an iPhone, Mary Beth.
Okay, are you iPhone 4 though? Is that her?
I think that's probably me, Jennifer Watts. Hey.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's Jennifer Watts. All right. Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself, Jennifer.
Actually, Christina Minion, who already introduced herself, she went with Kim Young this summer up to Alaska to a lot of our winter restoration sites. And they got to play in the field while I was at the computer writing reports. So I missed out on the fun field season, but I got to hear all about it, and they did a wonderful job. So a special thanks to Kim Young and Christina.
All right. Well, welcome. I'm going to rename you so I know who you are versus a phone. And we have Judy.
Hi, I think at this point, most everybody knows me. Judy Fahnestock. I work with Janet on the backside of PolarTREC. And you've gotten a million emails from me, so you know who I am.
Very good. Did I miss anybody that joined?
Is Joanna on the call? Did I miss Joanna?
She's not on the call at the moment. I don't see her.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And I know there's a couple of people that were going to join here a little bit later, so she might be one of them. All right. Judy, why don't you go ahead and share your screen, and we'll go from there. So everybody's screen's going to change here if you're with us, and you can exit the full screen mode up at the top and do a view options and make it so it works for you. Okay, so like I said, I wanted to welcome you all to this event. Today we're just going to go over really reflect on the experience, both from the educator side as well as the researcher side. We're going to share with you how we want to, what your needs are and how you want to stay connected. And then we got a few additional things we want to announce. Yeah, so Judy can go on to the next one. This is just a quick rundown of the number of people that have participated in PolarTREC to date. It even includes our new cohort 2019-20. So we're getting up there. So if you ever need any data from me, I guess, for reports and things, please just email me and I'll share things. But as you can see, we have a lot of more Arctic. That's just because of the way the funding cycles have gone over the last decade, over a decade that we've had PolarTREC. So I'm not going to go too much into all that. For those of you that are wondering, this current year we're still pending, although we're in negotiations with NSF. So someday we'll get money, I think, in the bank. Hey. In the meantime, some of the things that the educators have been working on, and this is kind of a gentle reminder for those of you that still might be working on some of these things, but there were a number of program requirements after the experience in particular that we tried to showcase. And one of them is this, the STEM experience reports, and you can see Mike's pen is the example that's given. Basically, this, for the researchers, this is a report, and hopefully you all see it as it's being developed, and as well get the final version. And if you haven't, let us know. But this is a report that looks at the whole experience and asks some questions, and it's designed to be for funders, for you, for your reporting and things like that. And so all the educators should have a STEM experience report drafted and or finalized on the website. And also another product are resources that we have them work on. Some of the resources that people have contributed over this season have been news clippings, news reports. There's been some videos that have been produced. If anybody did Polar Connect events, those end up in the resources. Any of the final products that the educators have produced, like lesson plans or for informal science educators, maybe a different kind of product. These all get added to the resources and also to your expedition pages. So we're always building on the resources. The other thing you might notice if you haven't looked at the PolarTREC website in a while is that it changed, the view, the theme changed. And so we're slowly tweaking things, but hopefully it's a better layout and a better, provides better function to some of these resources. And it's going to keep changing over the next couple of months. So things aren't always there. But that being said, for all the educators, the teacher's manual, now called educator's manual, still exists. So make sure if you need directions on things or aren't sure about what you need to do, that you refresh your memory with the educator's manual. Okay, Judy?
Can I cut in for a second?
Yeah.
I also wanted to let teachers know that if you have sent me a lesson plan in the recent passed. It has been prepared to be published, but because the website is doing a switch over like right now, part of the template for that has not been moved over yet. So it'll probably happen within the next week or so. So I'll send you all a notification when your lesson plans have been published.
Yeah. Yeah, and related to that, we'll talk about program requirements at the end. But in general, if there's something that you thought you sent or it isn't showing up as an educator or a researcher, you're looking for something, just always ping us, because there has been a little bit of disconnect and some broken URLs and things like that as we've done this switch over. So, okay, next slide. So this is just to give you an overview of where everybody went this following season. And yeah, we still have these kinds of flyers. So if you ever need it and you need it updated for sharing with people. And we also have a 2019-20 flyer. So you don't have to. Okay, so what the main part of this webinar is about is really to hear from you about what you've done with your experience, how you've collaborated with either other educators or researchers or people from the research team, and how you're bringing this into your learning settings. So I think everybody, for most part, we have slides from a lot of the educators that kind of show what they've been doing with their outreach, their lessons, things that they've learned, and what they want to do for collaboration. So I don't see those ones, Judy, so I'm going to actually have you ping whoever the next slide is. Well, here it is. So we're going to have everybody talk for just a couple minutes. We'll go from the educator, and then if the researcher is available, you feel free to ping and share what your collaboration bit is as well. So Keith, why don't you explain your slide here?
Okay, so in the upper left.
And you do, sorry Keith, you need to come closer to the mic. It's hard to hear.
All right, can you hear me?
Better.
Okay, so that was my team in the upper left-hand corner. It was a group from the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and then a biochemist from Florida. And so I was at Palmer Station, and we were working with shallow water marine environments and the chemical ecology that's located there. Since I've been back, I've had the opportunity to speak at a bunch of different places. I've done a couple bar talks, and then talked at the Catawba Science Center, which was a really good talk. About 40 people showed up on a Saturday morning to hear me speak. And then in the lower left-hand corner is Wendy and I. We gave a presentation at North Carolina Council on Social Studies this year called Polar Opposites. And I spoke to about 1,000 high school students. So I did a full day's worth of presentations in the fall semester, and then another one in the spring semester. So I pretty much hit every student at Freedom High School who's taking a science class this year. And then as far as my experience, kind of what I think is the cool thing about it is that it gave my students this global perspective, but then I was able to connect it locally to them. So what I really tried to do was, with all the research that was going on at Palmer Station that I could go in and take advantage of, a lot of it had to do with climate change and what's going to be going on in Antarctica. And so what I try to do is take a lot of that same stuff, warming oceans, and talk about, well, what's going to happen to our local lake here with invasive species when it warms, and then warming atmosphere, and how is that going to affect hurricanes that strike North Carolina. So I try to go from this global perspective to a more local perspective.
Okay, and I don't know whether you're in touch with Chuck, but the researcher that Keith went out with, he is actually en route.
He's on a ship now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
En route to another expedition. So Chuck's not with us today.
Yeah, and Judy informed me that this is in order of your expedition as we went through the season. So now we're going to go from Antarctica to the Arctic, just for fun. So, yep, Melissa, you're up.
Okay, so the top right, that's at Adigan Falls with the field tech, Matthew Simon, who's not on the call, and Jeremy. Most of what I've been doing has been, the center picture is actually at UCO, University of Central Oklahoma. They had a tree planting ceremony and invited me out to come and talk about my experience and what I was working on in Alaska, which was really fun because it was about 40-mile-an-hour winds that day. So the really cool board with all the awesome pictures that's also in that inset was just worthless because there was no way to, do that in that high wind. And it was a lot of yelling over the wind because there was no sound system. So always fun when you walk into these situations and not knowing what the situation is going to be as far as technology to kind of help you with your presentation. So it was just really me talking and them asking questions. In the bottom left, that's a picture of my students. We did a lesson based on, we were studying effects on populations. And so we were looking at how the changing phenology of different plants on the North Slope could affect the grizzly bear population. So we had different scenarios if it was just a normal season and there was plenty of food versus there was some sort of change. There was less food. There was a higher population of grizzly bears versus a lower population. So we just manipulated different factors with that. And that's them competing for their food there. So most of my outreach has been done with legislators in my local. I've been able to visit Kendra Horn, who is my federal representative, and talk with her about the work that I did with PolarTREC and with the team at Florida International University and the work that they're doing and the importance of continuing funding for programs like PolarTREC, continuing to fund NSF and other grant entities properly so that work can continue. Locally, I've done talks at local libraries and of course hit all of my kiddos in my school, which is roughly 600 kids, have done that as well. So working on, just became a National Center for Science Education Climate Change Ambassador. So that's a series of lessons that they've given me permission to, once I get them written for Alaska and what we did with phenology and vegetation change, that will be a series of lessons that I can put on the PolarTREC website as a resource. And it not only addresses climate change, but it's also going to be addressing the misinformation and disinformation about climate change and how to inoculate our students against the misinformation, but use the phenology, some of the phenology data, I think for sure for lesson 2 out of that series, but it's a series of 5 lessons, so look for it. It's going to be a really great resource if you teach climate change.
Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the lessons and having you share them in our resources when they're done.
Yeah, I asked Jeremy for some data, but I'm still trying to figure out exactly what data I need. I kind of dug around a little bit on the ITEX website, which is not super teacher user friendly. But I'm not the intended audience for that data, so it's okay. So once I figure that out, then Jeremy's already agreed to to send me something that's a little more user friendly as far as being able to incorporate data that we actually collected.
Very good. So speaking of Jeremy, you're on here. So would you or Steve like to add anything to this?
I just want to say that it was a fantastic opportunity to have Melissa with us. And I would, as someone said earlier, I would definitely hire her as a tech, you know, there would be no hesitation in my mind. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to helping her to like access some of the data that we collected and kind of how she can incorporate that into the classroom, because seeing the data that she's obviously familiar with and has helped collect and help that tie it into the classroom setting would be fantastic.
Yeah, very good. Brilliant.
Yeah, I was telling you, I was going to just real quick, a quick story. I texted Jeremy last week because I was sitting at a group with some teachers at NSTA, and they were looking at NDVI data, and they didn't know what NDVI was. And so I was able to explain the normalized indeed, you know, whatever NDVI stands for, I can't remember now, but the vegetation, the greenness and the formula, and that, hey, there's something called Green Seeker, and you just click the little button and it does the formula for you. So yeah, so you never know when your random tidbits of information will come in handy in a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, especially related to data and accessing it. I think that's a thing that a lot of educators would be very interested in. So, well, very good. And in the chat area too, Bridget saying, yeah, that is amazing. Well done. I think DJ said, yay, go, Melissa, you rock. So there you go. Steve, do you want to add anything since I know you're on as well?
I just say that this is kind of a lesson for us in terms of her not being able to find those data, because our project is designed to put data out there for everybody to use. And
I may be looking at the wrong site.
Well, if you're looking at ITEX, you're looking at the wrong site. But if you're looking at the Arctic Data Center and you're having the trouble, which I wouldn't be surprised because it's actually pretty complex, then that is a problem. But, you know, ideally, teachers ought to be able to use that. And there are tremendous resources out there for teachers if teachers know about them. And so this is kind of a, you know, wake-up call. It's like, But it was a great experience. I know I didn't spend the whole time with Melissa. I was only up there in Barrow with her, but she really got to get a great experience because she went to Barrow where the snow depth was extremely high and the snow melt was very late. So she got to drive snow machines and saw a polar bear, and she did all kinds of fun stuff before she got down to the work down at Tulik, which I didn't actually ever see. I had already left Tulik at that point.
Very good. All right. Yeah, related to the data stuff, I have been in touch with the Arctic Data Portal people about having something that's a little more user friendly, or webinars or something, so that it helps people get into the data, because it's, yeah, if you don't use data, it's actually fairly cumbersome. So, all right, very good. So let's see who's next. Oh yeah, Joanna, and I don't know if Joanna joined us yet. Joanna, are you out there? Nope. Okay. So Marybeth, would you like to just comment? I know you don't probably know what Joanna has on her slide here, but maybe you can comment about working with her, or some of the things that you might have talked about.
Okay. Am I unmuted now? Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'd be happy to fill in here. So Joanna, you can see is pictured on the right. I'm sorry, on the left. That's her in the foreground with light colored hair, and I'm next to her. And then my colleague from the Peabody Museum, Eric, is next to me. And we went up. This cruise went out of Nome, Alaska, where we got on the research vessel Sekuliak. If you go down, you can see the back deck of the Sekuliak, where one of the major things we were doing, using these underwater instruments that take video images of plankton, in particular jellyfish, as I mentioned earlier. And Joanna helped with the deployment of this instrument. She also helped, if you move over to the middle of the slide, you can see the data sheet where she was helping to mark our times where we were putting in nets into the water, and those were to collect live jellyfish. So we knew what live jellyfish were in the area, so then we can compare what we were finding in our live samples to the images that were being collected by the underwater instruments. And Joanna was great to work with. She was so enthusiastic and involved in all aspects of our collection. We worked around the clock, 24-hour observations, 12-hour shifts each. And she was always there documenting not only what we were finding in the water, but she was also really great about explaining what life on the ship is like, and interviewed everyone from the scientists to the technicians to even the people who lived and worked on board the Sikuliak throughout the year. And she was excellent about describing what life was like at sea. We also did some outreach, as you can see on the right-hand side of her slide. If you go down to the lower right, you can see us. We did a couple of radio interviews, both in Nome and in Dutch Harbor in Unalaska. We spoke with the media, explaining to local communities, and this was broadcasted even more broadly around Alaska, a bit about what we were doing, why it was important, why jellyfish are important. And I should say they are an important part of the ecosystem because they feed on young age classes of fish, as well as the zooplankton that the fish feed on. So they're directly feeding on commercial fish at the young age classes, as well as competing with those commercial fish for food. And so it's important to understand what's driving their ups and downs in the ecosystem. And what I've been working on for years is that looking at how climate changes influence the jellyfish populations up there. In addition to the reaching out to the media within the towns that we visited, we also ran an outreach event in Unalaska. As you can see, I'm at a table here with a young person, and we collected plankton as well as some in other invertebrates in the Dutch Harbor, and brought them out with microscopes and had essentially like a touch tank and a microscope set up so young people and their families could look at some of the sea life in their own backyard. And we again, also did lectures more designed for older folks to tell them more about our expedition. And then lastly, on the top, you can see a board that's set up. Joanna did some outreach in New Jersey as well. And she would have to tell you more about that. I was not able to attend those sessions, but she also did, in addition to doing things in her classroom, she did some public outreach in New Jersey as well.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, and I think we'll hear a little bit more about that event that she did up at Rutgers with when Lauren talks, so we can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and as I understand, Joanna does plan on calling in, so maybe she could tell you more about it. She can chime in as well.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Lots going on. Yeah, thank you. All right, so we have Dr. Donnie Bret Hart and Sophia Anderson, and I don't think either of them are able to join today. So Sophia shared this slide. I'm not going to go into it too much because I really don't know what all the pictures are about, but clearly she had something she wanted to say about her experience in working with Dr. Bret Hart up at Toolik Field Station this past summer. I think the big news with Sophia is that Dr. Bret Hart wrote a research grant that got funded, and she embedded an educator into that research grant, and Sophia is headed to Toolik Field Station here in June to work with her on that particular research project. So in terms of us seeing this collaboration and seeing it, seeing how it's developing, it's definitely a success, and with that. So we're pretty excited about about that development. And Dr. Bret Hart also will have another PolarTREC teacher headed up with her in July to do similar work. And again, Sfia and that teacher are already in communication. I don't know if any of the researchers remember this, but we have partner teachers where we match up the incoming educators with another educator that has had similar experiences, and it's to help them kind of figure out what they want to do with this experience. And Sfia has already matched up with that other educator, and they're starting to think about how they can expand the products and you know, share data and things to help get this particular science out to different types of learning communities. So good things happening there. And I think, let's see, who's the next one? Next is Wendy and Alexis. So Wendy?
All right. So I was with Dr. Alexis Will, who is pictured down in on the bottom left. Amazing. I don't have words for it. She was great. Like, I got there Sunday night, boom, 7 o'clock in the morning, she had me working. So that was perfect. That's what I wanted. And we did a lot. I am continuing to research. I feel like I just kind of touched the surface of what I want to learn. And I've had a few presentations, Museum of Natural Sciences in Raleigh, a couple at the Audubon societies in the area in Raleigh and Chapel Hill as well. And then Alexis did a lot of legwork. You can see up in the top left, we did a connection with students at the school in Sovongo, which was really important for me. One of the things that I'd wanted to do, and we connected with my newcomer students. And I think it was interesting for them to learn that not everybody was from the United States in a United States school, and that we're not like Hollywood. It's a little bit different, but that was really cool. And Alexis had a great idea of connecting you can see in the middle top and right above and below the title on the screen, you can see that there are pictures of the gulls and then maps. So we looked at a gull that was common in Alaskan areas and then a gull that was common in North Carolina. And that way the kids could actually look at the birds. They practiced observation skills to see what was the same and different. Of course, you know, with the newcomers, it was language-based, but they were also used the maps as map literacy, geoliteracy. There were so many things that we were able to wrap into it. And again, Alexis was great at she was the one. I said, okay, how can we connect this locally? And that was her idea. Just connecting with the students was a window into their world, especially in the winter time. They enjoyed that. And then one of the things I was really worried about before I went was not knowing anything about birds. And I realized that there's so much we learn from them, and I understood what it meant that they're an indicator species, which shifted how I look at a lot of things around me now. I'm on vacation in Florida right now, and just walking down by the beach, I'm looking at shorebirds and caring about what they are, and I never would have done that before. So I appreciated how narrowing a focus in research really still allows you to expand and understand the larger cycle in depth, which has been a bonus. My outreach continues up in the top right, like my sketches. Our North Carolina Zoo has expressed interest in possibly posting something similar to this one, like the seabird one, in their seabird display. They have guillemots there at the North Carolina Zoo, and they also have puffins. So I may do another sketch that kind of goes along with what they're looking for. And then we also have a new class that has been proposed at my school based on my experiences and how important it is for students to do citizen science now. So we have a new class that will start in the fall where 50% of the time the students are projected to be outside. We've ordered bird feeders, trail cams for the bird feeders, and some trails in our school backyard.
So that's, again, thanks to Alexis and her ideas. So lots of ramifications are still going on.
All right, very nice. And yeah, Wendy and I, every time Wendy comes on, I always have about a gazillion ideas of things that I want her to do. So you do a great job. I'm like, oh, I could so have this done. So I think Alexis is still on, and if you are, feel free to pipe in, Alexis.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add, but to what Wendy said, and then I'm going to add one thing. But yeah, it's great having someone like Wendy. It's amazing to see how she takes ideas and really, well, does what an educator would do. And so that's been really cool for me to watch happen. And then also there's just so many ideas. I feel like we're just at the start of where this could go, and it's almost a little bit overwhelming, all the different places, but yeah, I definitely see a lot of room for continuing our collaboration. And I hadn't heard about the citizen science class, and that's super awesome, Wendy. So yeah, it's cool updates.
You'll be helping with that, by the way.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it.
It's always good when researchers find out they have more work added.
Well, we just found out this past week, so
I'm just teasing.
This will be quite an experiment. So, Alexis,
No, it sounds really awesome, and yeah, I'm excited about it.
Very good. That's awesome. Great collaborations. All right, we're going to move on from Wendy to Allison.
I had to find my unmute button. Hi, everyone. So what I've done is a little different because of my job. I don't get much interaction with the public, but I want to talk a little bit about how my experience has changed my practices in my job. So I do research and development for new exhibits, and I went to Nikolai, Alaska, which is a village outside Denali, with Alexander, who's on the call right now, and Santos, who's the one holding the meter stick there. And it's a collaborative project with the community there to look at how permafrost is changing with climate change, and that hopefully will help the village make some predictions and build resiliency in the face of climate change. Because when your life is built on top of ice and the planet is warming, there's some scary things in the future. And I think, so I actually developed the exhibit before I went out into the field, which is a strange experience to study something for like 3 years and then go out and have the chance to actually see it. And I think that just comes down to funding structures and the way that we've traditionally run the development process. And then I came home and I got to put together all these outreach materials, which you can see there. I put together a whole educator guide. So what this provides is programs for museum educators in the exhibit. So when the exhibit about permafrost that I developed travels around the country and even to Canada, you can pull out demos, and an educator can help support the learning in the exhibit with these demos that I put together. And then there are a few classroom programs also. So you can see I did one that is kind of just a simple mock-up of what happens when permafrost thaws is your house falls over. But we made these plastic houses, and the shop was kind of clever about making them actually. So there's metal on the bottom, and you can see one of them is on stilts. And so when you pour hot water into these houses, the one with the stilts, it takes a lot longer for it to thaw the permafrost underneath. And it just helps explain why when you go up to Alaska and communities that are built on permafrost, sometimes you'll see houses on stilts. And then it's something that's not directly related to climate change, but offers an end to talking about climate change. So I said that I was going to talk about my practices. I have been using this experience to advocate for more field work for exhibit developers here in the museum, which can be kind of a hard sell because it is resource intensive and it costs money to get us out into the field with researchers. But I have so many stories and experiences from my time in the field, even though we were there for less than a week, about, I wish that I'd known this before I developed the exhibit, because you don't know what it feels like to have your boot sink through the active layer in permafrost until you got and actually experience it. And you don't know how you're going to see a contraption that a researcher put together, like Sasha Alexander had these like a cardboard that he just folded, and then that allowed him to write in each of the folds an identifying marker for each of the core samples that we were taking from trees, and then you just wrap it in duct tape. And it's really simple, but I think it would have been a tool that I would have really liked to include in the exhibit, because it's an accessible entry into how science is done. It's clever, but it doesn't feel like something that you would never be able to understand. And so anyway, so I've been talking about that with visitors, and we can incorporate that into the programming. But I've been able to use my experience to really advocate for field experiences with this new exhibit that I'm developing about snow. So I'm hunting down funding to get into the field to work with snow scientists, and I'm looking for funding to get back to Nikolai, actually the same community, and use the relationships that I established there to interview the community about their experience with snow, both culturally and then also in terms of the changes that they're observing. And then I'll be bringing along a video camera, and hopefully we'll be able to get that incorporated into my next exhibit. So I think that my experience, it informed the outreach for the permafrost exhibit that I developed, but it's also really having a foundational effect on the way that my museum does exhibit development work, and it's given me a great tool to advocate for what we need to make science come alive, I think, for our visitors. So thank you.
You're awesome. Thank you. Wow. I think that was a fantastic plug for informal science educators. Awesome. Yeah, I think it would be fun. Has anyone seen the exhibit yet in a local community? I was wondering, you could type in chat if you've been able to see it. I was wondering if anybody got to go see your handiwork. Is anybody from your team on? I can't see.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh yeah, there you are. Sorry. Okay, go ahead, Alexander, if you want to add things.
Well, just I want to show you here the stuff Alison was talking about, tree cores, the way to pack tree cores. And but seriously, I'm very glad Alison had a chance to join us, so we can really make results of our efforts available for broad public, for broad community. And I'm also glad people in main states, United States, will know more about such small, really remote local communities, because for most of people living in big cities and even towns in lower 48, it's very difficult now even to imagine how do people live there. So I'm glad we had this unique opportunity to share our experience and our knowledge. And yeah, it was great pleasure for me also to work with Alison. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, thanks Alexander for piping in there. All right, next up we have Lauren.
Yes, hi. So I've got a bunch of different things going on. In the upper left, you can see our team, which Neil is with the big yellow thing sticking out of his backpack is the one on call with us, and then the rest of the team, various professors, postdocs, and graduate students. So at the museum, I've been incorporating the PolarTREC stuff into a lot of our events. Plus, I've been doing additional outreach. So one of the biggest things I did was my annual open house, which is the largest event at the museum each year. And this year was the 51st year of the open house, where we have like a mineral sale and lectures and kids activities and arts and crafts and things like that. So in order to maximize the PolarTREC connection, we decided to do a themed open house this year. So we did it on polar science. So Luke came out and gave a talk at the open house. And then I had people from Rutgers. One gave a talk on Antarctica, another one gave a talk on Greenland. So we had a whole, contingent of different scientists, sweeping the globe talking about polar science. And then we had a whole bunch of different activities about polar science. We were using the ECW kits and things like that. You can also see in the upper right-hand corner me standing next to some school kids where I did a polar ambassadors with them, where over a course of, I think it was 8 weeks in December and January, I worked with the local library in the town that the museum is located in, and we met with them every week for 8 weeks, and we talked about them different polar topics. They actually chose to study about Antarctica, and then they came to my event and then presented to the people attending the event about what they had learned. So they did a very good job. The other thing that I had worked on in the fall and has continued to work on until last week was one of my lesson plans. So you can see Luke in the bottom left-hand corner holding the big blue thing. That is a 3D print from the data that we took from the drone in the field. So that's the actual shape of one of the mountains that we hiked in Switzerland. So I put together a lesson plan that we use these 3D prints, and I worked with the Rutgers Makerspace since the fall, and I'm still working with them now, getting the prints to modify the file that Luke and his graduate student manipulated from the drone to be able to create this 3D print. And then I created a lesson plan that simulated going through the different methods that scientists use to take a landscape and turn it into data that a computer can use. So the middle picture you can see is the more updated version of this mountain top. You can see that it's printed in different colors. So working with the Makerspace, we were able to modify these mountains that the students can take them apart and manipulate them. And you can see one of my workers is actually taking the measurements on the mountain, and they're actually simulating making profiles of the mountain. So I just posted this lesson last week. So it should be coming live soon. But it's taken months to get it to this point, because we're going back and forth with Makerspace and modifying the files so that they're easily downloadable and then printable from people who have either 3D printers themselves, or they can send the files to some place to be printed. So very soon, all of the files for this that you need to do this activity will be available to everybody. So if anybody feels like doing this and wants to test it for me and then give me updates on it, I would love to have feedback on how it went with your class. Thanks, TJ. So I tried to make it, because I'm an informal educator, I tried to write the lesson plan as something that can be used for a classroom and informal spaces. So there's, I was trying to make modifications so that it can be done with different age groups, because we do this with all different age groups at the museum. So if you teach an age group that is not listed on that, I would love to work with you to help update this so that it can be easily accessible to all different groups. So other outreach that I've done a lot of Skype a Scientist talks, where I sign up to talk with schools around the country, even around the world. Most of them want to talk to me because I study climate change, or I'm a geologist. So I've been talking a lot about glaciers and melting glaciers to school groups all across the country. I have another event coming up. We're doing an environmental technology event at my museum, which will be in a couple weeks. But the biggest prize, I think, of this whole thing is how I'm starting to use Structure for Motion for other stuff. So Structure for Motion is the program that takes 2D images and creates 3D images from those 2D images. So in the bottom left, right-hand corner, probably wondering why there's a picture of a donut, but that is it's just a ceramic donut that I have on my desk. So I was using it as an example of how to take pictures. So that is actually a 3D rendering from the 2D pictures. And then below that is something that I did last week, which is actually the 3D image of a dinosaur footprint in the museum. So something that has come up over and over again is how useful Structure for Motion is for accessibility issues, especially in the geosciences. So bringing things of the field into, maybe traditional classrooms that aren't unable to go into the field. So I've kind of stumbled upon some different outlets that I'm starting to use this technology in other ways. So we had a request at the museum where a group asked us if we would be willing to create a tour for the visually impaired. So this is something that we did not know we weren't properly trained on how to do that, but this is something we're working with student researchers now on how to meet the needs of those groups. And then we're also using the Structure for Motion program, which is why I took those pictures of this footprint, so that we can take pictures of items in the museum, make 3D prints of them, or 3D pictures, and then turn them into 3D prints that can help address these groups that have accessibility issues for a variety of reasons. And so this actually also turned into a short activity for Earth Science Week. So I'm on the education committee for the Geological Society of America, and they usually contribute an activity for the Earth Science Week calendar. And so they had asked if people would be willing to write up an assignment, like a little activity. And the theme, each year there's a theme. So this year's theme had to do with Earth Science is for Everyone, kind of addressing some of these inclusion and accessibility issues. So I was able to modify some of this from the 3D printing and the Structure for Motion and create a short lesson that was just submitted last week for this Earth Science activity. So those are not things that I was expecting to come out of this. And I have other plans that I would like to do. So I have other lessons that I want to make, but this one took, the 3D printing took a lot longer than I expected, but I wanted to make sure that all the components were there, since it is technology that not many people might not be familiar with. So hopefully we'll have some people test it out and they can tell me what they think about that. So that's it from me.
Awesome. Lots going on there, Lauren. The 3D printing and using the data from the research with a new technology, that's fantastic. That's just a really, really neat thing to see. Let's see, I think Neil, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we'd love to hear from you too.
Well, first I just want to thank Lauren for all of her help in the field. It was great having her with us. To have a educator from a very different context with you in the field, I think helps the scientists in the group stay a lot more centered than they would otherwise, sort of keep the perspective where it should be. And Lauren very much did that for us. It was a lot of hard work, but as I think you can see, she's really, among other things, she's gotten into the technology to a very large degree and really utilized it in productive ways. And so I haven't heard about a lot of this stuff until now, and I'm very excited to see all the stuff that Lauren has done. It's hard when you have a subject like this one in particular that is really technical, involves a lot of mathematics and modeling and whatnot. The fact that she's been able to boil this down into exercises that pretty small kids can actually get something out of is, I think, a real testament to her creativity in issues like this. And so I just want to really thank you, Lauren, for all your help.
Excellent. Thanks, Neil, for sharing that insight. That was
I'm going to have to actually leave now because I have an errand to run, but
okay.
Thanks again.
All right.
See you later.
Thanks. And I know that we are coming up on an hour. We'll probably spend a little bit more time here. We got to go through the one more Arctic and then into Antarctica. So bear with us if you can. We want to hear all these great projects. So we got Kim Young and her project, and I know Christina and Jennifer are online. I also have an audio from Kim that I'll play first and that shares this slide, but I'm not sure how well the sound will be, so bear with me here. I got to find it again. Okay.
Hi everyone. For my PolarTREC experience, I went to Alaska with the Woods Hole Research Center with research assistant Christina Minions in the picture, and also Dr. Jenny Watt. We were looking at primarily winter respiration in the Arctic, and we were based primarily in Fairbanks, Alaska. However, my PolarTREC experience ended up being more of a polar science sampler and a chance to also kind of travel all throughout Alaska, all the way from Anchorage to Utqiagvik. My experience began with a week in the far north up in Utqiagvik, getting to see a lot of different types of polar science. I got to work with a team that was from Flemings. I also helped out some teams who are building kind of aerial transect rigs, and just got a little bit of here and there of all the polar science. I also got to learn about how they're using drones up in Utqiagvik. And a unique experience I was able to have was traveling to ITEX with Dr. Watts, and we had to speak with some students and got to observe some science classrooms and see a little bit about what education, secondary education is like off the road system, and some citizen science projects they're attempting to take on. But then I went down to Fairbanks and spent the majority of my time working with Christina, servicing soil respiration stations and pulling data off to help Woods Hole Research Center get data for the NASA Above project, kind of getting some long-term data about different CO2 emissions happening in different locations across the permafrost. And then we also helped out a little bit with the Viper project, taking a depth measurement. Overall, the experience has been, amazing. And taking it back to my classroom in expected and unexpected ways. I've worked on creating several different kind of 360 immersive experiences, and Christina was actually able to visit my classrooms last week. She was able to teach 2 lesson plans, and we worked together on this lesson plan, and students worked through it. And she also was able to show and tell with the students, bringing in some permafrost core samples and soil samples to get some hands-on experience with polar science. I've also been working more with my students around satellite data and how to use satellite data in history and scientific explorations. I really feel like this is just the beginning of all of the ways I'm going to integrate my PolarTREC experience into my classroom. But I definitely feel confident that historians have a place in polar science, and I look forward to further developing that in the coming years. Thank you so much.
All right. Very good. All right, and we have Christina and Jennifer on, so we'll start with Christina. Any thoughts or things that you want to add? I do know you were with Kim last week.
Yeah, I think she did a really great job covering that recording. That's very smart of her. Yeah, it was actually great to get to continue to work with Kim over the past couple months, and actually get to go to her classroom and develop a lesson plan for the students there. So we kind of created this kind of field exploration worksheet for them. So with the VR and site photos, and from me being there and from her actually kept going to the sites to kind of help the students put themselves in a researcher's shoes and get to explore a little bit more. And kind of, I brought a bunch of equipment that we use in the field, so our tape measures, thought out probes, sampling equipment, as well as some permafrost cores. So they got to kind of see all the kind of work that Kim actually got to do in the field, and also hear, ask any questions they had about Arctic research. So that was really great.
Very good. How about Jennifer? Are you there?
Yes. I just want to say how impressed I was and am with Kim. She was a great person to have in the field, very productive. And I look forward to working with her in the future. Hopefully I'll be able to write her in into upcoming proposals and get her back to Aquasuk working with the school there. And then hopefully we'll be able to get her students down to the Toll Research Center as well. We had an attempt. It became a snow day, unfortunately, but I think this is just the start of a long-term relationship.
Very good. Yes, and keep us posted about your ideas about getting to Aquasuk or Utiagvik, anybody, because we do have a lot of connections with the communities up there. So it's always nice to kind of bring all the educators and the researchers and community people together. So, all right, very good. Let's see. Now I think we're moving down to Antarctica. So we got Mike and team.
Yep, that's us. So that's the automatic weather stations team. They're at top. That's Lee on the left, and he is up here somewhere. I can't see him at the moment. And then Forbes and Lee, Elena, that's me, the old guy with the beard, and then Dave. So we were in McMurdo and South Pole Station. We serviced I don't know, they can tell you exactly. They serviced almost every one that they had on their list. I think I got to 7 or 8 probably. Totally amazing, wonderful experience. They involved me from the beginning as a total member of the team. There's a picture on the bottom right of us. Actually, that's Lee down in the hole and a couple of boondogglers. And I think, and Lee can correct me on this, that may be Henry or Nico. It's definitely Henry or Nico, but I think it's Henry, near the South Pole. And the picture on the left and the picture above that are me giving presentations. I've talked to right around 5,000 kids in person. Amazed at how much interest there is in outreach. It depends on the age of the kid, what they're interested in. 4th graders are interested in how you go to the bathroom at 50 below or, in a 40-mile-an-hour wind. But high school kids are totally interested in climate change and the data that we are collecting. When I give these presentations, I pull up the live real-time data from the stations that I'm showing. And then in my hallway at school, there are about 1,000 kids in my hallway. And I've got about 70 of them working on a project for various locations on Earth and tracking the weather and the amount of daylight over time. And then it's presented graphically in several different ways, but the chart's about 60 feet long now, showing a whole bunch of data over a long period of time. And then every morning on our news, we do a video news in my school building, and they give a weather report for today here in Pittsburgh, but they also give a weather report for McMurdo, South Pole Station, and then several other, they'll pick random automatic weather stations that they pull data up for. So I think the one thing that I show my kids, they're very interested in the people that I was with and how these people got to be where they are and what kind of schooling it takes to get there. Which is awesome. And it's really nice to be able to tell them that not just my team, but every person that I met there was totally normal, not just an unapproachable geek, but that they are normal people. I show pictures of Dave and Forbes playing their guitars and cribbage playing and, just Elena talking well, she was trying to text when we had internet, but just that they're normal people. And then the bottom line really is just the awesomeness of having gotten to do something like this and have a little tiny, tiny sliver of, involvement in such a huge project as, collecting climate data. I mean, how cool is that? And then that there's no other way to have gotten kids as interested in so much of this stuff that is in a textbook, the most boring thing ever. But when, when I'm showing pictures and describing it and showing people that are friends of mine that, I went there and did it with, it's amazing how excited the kids get about that.
Awesome.
Okay. Dave and Lee.
Very good. Yeah, Dave and Lee, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, it went great. That was Henry, and you might be wondering how I can tell, because it's both are completely flat white. It was because Nico was a considerably deeper dig.
Oh, right.
Henry was a little less of a dig, and the lower temperature sensor you can see is actually there.
Yeah.
The subtle differences you notice on all of these weather stations that are on flat white nothingness that is Antarctica.
Yeah, so for everybody else there, we only had to dig about 4 feet down, but for the other, we had to dig about 7 feet to get down to that battery box.
Yep. And we did have a pretty successful season, and again, thanks in part to Mike helping out a ton. We got something along the lines of 31 stations when we planned for 27. So it was a pretty good year, and Mike was instrumental and very, very helpful. Like you helped.
I had a very small part in that, but I'll take the.
You definitely fit because it can get stressful in Antarctica. It can everyone knows that field work can get stressful, and you need the right personality to work in those scenarios. And
yeah, you helped keep morale high, so that's always good.
Being a smart, as Janet would say.
I don't know, it just cut out, so I didn't hear what you just said.
Okay. No, I said being a smart ass is helpful.
It is. It definitely is.
I'm glad that it came in.
That was great.
Yes.
Awesome. Very good. All right. Fun to see what you guys did there. It wasn't too long ago you were all in Antarctica either.
Yeah.
Very long ago. All right. We're going to move on to Kevin. And I don't know if Byron joined, but Kevin, welcome home. Again, you weren't in Antarctica too long ago.
No, just a few weeks ago. No. Yeah. In fact, the beard just came off Friday. I had to work a shift at the fire station. They didn't want beard, so I was looking still Antarctic until then. But before I lose Mike off of my screen here, I had to tell him he's got a cool shirt. I've got one just like it here in the other room. It's the trail systems of Antarctica that he's wearing there. So, yeah, I think we've been on the same. Yeah, there he is. He's flexing his chest and showing that T-shirt. So, yes, I was part of the and Wendy heard right, the worm herders of Antarctica. So we went to the dry valleys. That is the 1% of Antarctica that is not covered with all that ice that Mike just showed you. Places, there's ice 1.5 miles thick in Antarctica, but we were on the driest continent, and our group went, as you can see in that photo there, into the driest place of the driest continent. So the only life that's there, we don't have to worry about things like plants messing up our experiments or animals running around kicking it over. There are none of those other than the animals down in the soil. That is the whole ecosystem, is what goes down on in that soil. So we flew into McMurdo, and from there it was about an hour's flight by way of helicopter out across the Ross Sea, out into the dry valleys. The one that we spent most of our time in was Taylor Valley. We were part of, and I know we've thrown this term around today, but we were part of an LTER, a long-term ecological research site. There's 3 in Antarctica. We were at one there in the dry valleys, the South Pole, and then Palmer Station. Palmer Station is an LTER also. So this LTER where we were is comprised of about 5 different teams. And we were the soil team, the one the picture that you see here, we're all gathered around the rock there. And our team also collaborated with a lake team. Behind us here is Lake Bonny in the Taylor Valley. There's a glacier team, and we collaborated with them. That team would fly up, you think about this as a rough job, but they would fly up to the top of these glaciers by way of helicopter. They would ski down and do their science along the way. There's a stream team, a lake team. I got a chance to work with the lake team. In fact, if you look up at that picture up at the top, I'm talking, this is my favorite outreach that I did. So I am talking on a cell phone there, and that yellow box is our comm box, communication box, that goes down through. If you can see, there's a cord down around by my feet. Looks like an umbilical cord. That's what we call it, is the umbilical. It went under the ice. I'm standing out on Lake Bonny right now. The ice is about 12 feet thick. And we had a diver on the right-hand side. You could see Sean underwater. You see his tank there. He's down underwater collecting soil samples. And what you can see that he's trying not to touch is the cyanobacteria. That's where the ecosystem really starts. And so the photosynthetic organisms there really kick off the ecosystem. But back to the Skype session. So Sean is diving with a helmet that had comm to the surface, which we then could connect to my sat phone, which I called in to one of my students' cell phones, which then she put it over the intercom system in my room. So it was pretty cool. The kids could talk live to this diver underneath the ice in Antarctica. So it took a little bit of logistics, but the lake team was great to help me out with that. Bottom left, you can still see we had smiles on her face. This is one of the times that we got stranded out in Antarctica. We got dropped off. The helicopter pilot told us that he probably would not be able to get us. We wanted to be picked up in about 4 hours to get our work done. And it was coming up on 4 days before we ever saw a flight back home again, back to McMurdo. So, but we had fun. There was a hut that we were near, so we managed to get into that, and there was some warmth. There was some old crusty food that was left, so we had a good time. It was fun to do that. Picture over on the right, bottom right over there, that's up on Observation Hill overlooking McMurdo. After about a month of being there, and by the way, from start to finish, I was just shy of 2 months before I made my way back home. But we would go up on Observation Hill, and then this is one of the 2 computers on station that enabled us to use Skype to get out. And after about a month of being there, then we started Skyping and communicating with schools and other groups. I got an extra week in McMurdo. We got weathered in, and then the C-17 had mechanical issues. They had to bring in a part from New York. So I got an extra week, and so I did another 4 or 5 more Skype sessions each day where I could get out and talk to schools and that. But that's kind of the rundown of what we did. We looked at the ecosystems of the dry valleys, which are super simple. We can manipulate one variable, and it's pretty easy to see the results from that one variable, as compared to trying to do that in your backyard, or up in the forest around here. There's so many variables in an ecosystem that you don't know for sure, what could have changed your results there. As far as in my classroom, did lots of Skype sessions. My kids we've come up with an LTER, a long-term ecological research site up the canyon behind our school. And so we've been up there starting to collect some data. We have on my countertops at school as we speak right now, very similar equipment. I've just got it all purchased, and it's sitting on the counter, to where the students now are going to start extracting these soil animals from the soil they collect around town. So we're going to use the same process we used in the Crary lab there in school. Still outreach going on to this day. I've been to, I've not as good of a radio interview as Mike did, but I managed to get on board with the radio station, and I've been to another Utah State University and presented there. And that's kind of a rundown. Maybe one more thing. I saw, I guess there were two questions I was supposed to address is what did I learn about polar science? And I think I've communicated that with how an LTER works and the connectivity, all the teams, how they collaborated, not just our team, but every country in the world there in Antarctica. Every country was collaborating in with the science they were finding. And then I guess, what did I value the most? I've heard this from every group that we've been chatting with today, and that is the friendships that you develop. We were with these folks I was going to say every day. There's only one day in Antarctica, but for that one big long day, we were with that team right there, and we still call each other friends. And from being stranded and cold, and I mean, we were safe. We weren't cold, but in Antarctica, we just developed some great friendships, and we're still in communication. They're helping me with the labs that we're working on now. So that's our deal. Had a great time.
Thanks, Kevin. I don't know if Byron snuck on while we were here or anything, but anybody? Byron?
Hey,
okay.
Maybe one more thing quick, just to speak up for Byron. He is opening up his lab, and I'm taking my kids over to his lab. We're working very closely with Polar Ice, another program kind of like PolarTREC, and I've been pretty heavily involved with them. And so he's opened up his lab. We're going to continue with that Polar Ice program, and we're going to be over at his lab. He's over at our school. We have a great friendship, him and my students. So it's been very valued.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Kevin, for sharing. Before we kind of turn it over to Sarah, because she wants to talk about something, I wanted to see if, Bridget, do you want to share anything? I know you're still on the road out there. Is there anything you want to add about what you're doing?
Not to be put on the spot or anything. I guess just starting this whole process over again has been something new. I'm really lucky to have 2 cohorts, and I actually joined this call to see and get more ideas from my first cohorts people that I can do with my experience, and it seems like I had a really awesome experience.
Good. Yeah, it will be interesting to have you and Michelle as part of 2 cohorts. So it'll be fun to see what you guys end up doing with that. Okay. And also, before the day is done here, I do want to hear from DJ and Gary, since you were helped train up everybody. But maybe we'll do it after Sarah wraps up her little slide here and shares about collaborations. So Sarah, I'll turn this over to you.
Sure. So one of my small tasks sort of throughout the year is to get a record of our educators working together within the cohort. So one of the big things we added to this grant, which many of you know, is the inclusion of informal educators officially into the program and trying to translate what we've done for years into that audience. So that's kind of where I'm focusing. So I've started collecting. We had a webinar of the Arctic folks, so I started to put together the pieces that they were sharing. So this is just, you've heard it all already, some of the things they said. But any of the educators in this cohort, if you think of something that you didn't say on this call that I should know about coordinating between other people in your cohort, let me know, and I'll add to this. And for researchers, this is going to be a piece that sort of goes into our final report, or one of our updates and stuff, and the final report to NSF about this cohort. And I'd be happy to share it with you if it's a helpful tool to share with any of your audiences of sort of what happens when we invest in these educators and then they begin collaborating from formal to formal educators within classrooms or across through informal and formal audiences. And just a few little things I want to add is over the years we've gotten a lot of feedback from researchers of how we can make the program a little bit better. So just to give you a heads up, one of the things for our new cohort that we've been adding is that their products sort of really need to focus on some of the data, which this cohort here in front of us has done an amazing job of bringing data into those products. So we're continuing that. And just sort of that more consistent communication between educators and researchers. So that's another one of our big focuses, especially post-expedition. So, you know, making sure people continue checking in just like this. So I'll just leave it at that, and feel free for anybody to get a hold of me if they ever need anything, but you've got Janet and Judy too. So I'll leave it at that. And we're very excited to get heat here in Alaska in like minutes.
Very nice. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I think it was great to hear from everybody. And Judy, you can go to the next slide, about what they were doing and all the amazing things. I was kind of blown away by what you guys are all, what you've already done with your experiences, and you haven't really been back that long, really, in the scheme of absorbing the experience and participating in the field and doing your regular, you know, lives and work. It's just, you've done a lot already and put a lot of effort into it. So the last little bit here is really just a reminder to you of what you're accountable to us at ARCUS for joining PolarTREC. Really, we want you to take a hard look at what you've done for program requirements. Get back online, start checking boxes if you're an educator, and so that we can keep tabs on what you need to what you still owe us. In particular, we're very interested in those STEM reports, so if you haven't done those, please get those to us. Remember, they need to be vetted again by the research team, and the researchers, you can use those in your reporting requirements as well, so that's a good thing. Also, any products or lesson plans, Judy mentioned that at the beginning, we're doing a little bit of publishing and have to, you know, work on some of the website kinks, but at the same time, there's templates for you already that you can use offline. So please make sure to get your products, whatever that looks like, to us. And, you know, I think Lauren mentioned, you know, having hers tested by some other classrooms and people, and that's a great idea as well. So please make sure you check on your program requirements. Researchers, if you don't know how to look for your teacher online or your educator online and see where they are, ping Judy and myself, and we'll work you through that process and show you exactly where you can see what they've done and what they've produced. And the other big thing is just, this is kind of a maintenance thing. At the end of our year with you as educators, all your PolarTREC email addresses get switched over to your normal email address so that you can still respond to journals and all those kinds of things. So just be aware that that change is going to be happening if it hasn't happened already. And Judy and I will send you a note about that.
That has already happened, Janet.
It's already happened. So if you wonder why you can't log in, that's probably why. So if you're trying to do it. A note to all of you about things that we still are able to support. We do still have some funding for travel support. So this spring or over the summer, if you want to go visit a school as a researcher, or go visit your educator at their institution, or, you know, go to a conference or things like that. Same with an educator. If you have some post-expedition outreach activities that you need support for, you can go into the educator's manual and fill out the form. Researchers, just let us know what you're interested in, and we'll send you the link to the form so that you can give a request funding. If you are doing outreach, still continue to upload those research outreach activities online, the web form. I think Kevin, you get the latest prize for the most outreach documentation forms submitted in like the span of 24 hours. I don't know if you just spent all night doing all those. Thank you very much for doing that. So continue for a long time into the future, adding your outreach to our website. And for all of you, what's going to happen is this summer is I'm going to take all that outreach activities and I make an infographic that I use in our reporting purposes. So I'm kind of waiting for you to catch up on things, and then I'll take that information as a group cohort and make an infographic and share that on the website and with everybody. So I think that's all of my little things I had to say. Oh, DJ and Gary, do either of you want to add anything or comment about stuff since you were both part of this training?
And Janet, I just wanted to let you know that Kim just joined us. She's been flying in a plane. So.
Okay. All right, DJ or Gary, anything you want to add?
I will. I'll add to everyone, both the educators and the researchers, you might have discovered that there was a skill or a talent or a technology that you were introduced to during your expedition. And to actually make a plan for yourself and schedule it out through the time to see how can you further develop that skill. You know, if it's a skill in speaking, if it's a skill in, you know, there were a lot of different technology skills that people mentioned. If it's a skill in movie making, just continue to work on how are you going to further that, and then go back to the cohort or to Janet or Judy and say, hey, I'm trying to do this. Do you know of someone who was successful at it? And they can help continue to make connections with PolarTREC's people who have been in other cohorts that have done something, and they can connect you. So keep those skills going, and you'll continue to use your PolarTREC experience.
Great advice. Thank you, Gary. DJ, anything you would like to say?
No, I just second all of what Gary said. You know, all of those connections, you're part of the PolarTREC family, and we're everywhere. And so find us. And, you know, there's so many things that you can do to represent us in other ways besides all the amazing things you've already done. For example, I was doing a session at NSTA this year, and I was like, I know that there's some PolarTREC teachers here. Please come to this PolarTREC session. And so Melissa and who was the other person? I am blanking.
Anne.
Thank you. And so they came to the session, and I invited them up to the front and just being like, we all went to the Arctic. So we wanted to share what our Arctic experience was to all the people that showed up to our session. So it wasn't, you know, that network can also show up in lots of different ways, including at conferences where you can share your experiences with other teachers.
Good. All right. Kim, you had a great presentation. Your audio worked really well, and Jennifer and Christina both piped in as well. So it worked good. Is anybody else have any closing thoughts or things that they want to share? Okay. Well, I got to say that I'm pretty proud of you all. It always is nice to see what you've all done and see you virtually, even though we can't all be in person. Please keep us posted on your needs or your wants and what you're doing in your lives. I know that everybody gets busy, but Judy and Janet and Sarah, we're still around. So if you come to Alaska, let Sarah and Janet know. And if you happen to the East Coast, ping Judy. And we love to see you wherever, you know, we happen to be. Make those connections with you. So thanks everybody for your time tonight, and we will archive this and share it with you. And researchers or others that weren't able to join will be able to reflect on it. And have a good evening wherever you are.
Bye. Thank you.